Since the 60s, whites have lived under the accusation of their race.
You are welcome to the making of Who Killed Michael Brown. We're very excited to have the filmmaking team here with us, both the writer and narrator Shelby Steele and the director Eli Steele. And when I say director, he also did a bunch of other things, including editing. We don't want to give you short shrift. I also want to make sure that we thank and recognize our partners at Florida State University's DeVoe Moore Center. We've got Catherine Peralta. I don't know if she's on yet, but Amber Hedquist is here, and I saw Axel Rizzo and Sam Staley, who is the director of the DeVoe Moore Center at Florida State. Free Minds Film has traditionally, since 2013, focused on independent filmmakers who have an interest in liberty, but now we're expanding it to include those students and such who may not be filmmakers themselves, but have interest in pursuing careers in film and media. And Courtney, can you give us a brief history of how Free Minds came to be?
Sure. So I'm Courtney Valacher. For those of you who haven't met us yet, this is Ted. We have our own production company called Courtula Productions, and we make feature documentaries and narratives, and we've been doing that for about 10 years. When we launched our own company and started making movies that were really important to us, we learned a lot that we didn't know prior about distribution in particular, because it was changing rapidly even while we were forming our company and making our movies. And we thought it would be really great if we could share our knowledge of what we've learned through the years with other liberty-minded filmmakers. And we started off with workshops and seminars, but Free Minds Film has grown into a much bigger network, which is fantastic. Projects have come from it, from people meeting at our events. We also consult on projects, Ted and I, and so we're really excited to be partnering with Sam and his team at the DeVoe Moore Center. And this is obviously our first time doing these virtually. They're usually in person, and they usually end with us drinking lots of fun cocktails. So maybe after this, you guys could go into your kitchen and make a cocktail in the spirit of what it used to be. But we will do it in person again once everything starts to open back up again. But thank you all for being here.
Eli's the closest to the Culver Hotel where we usually hold our events, so he can go and have a cocktail. So the way that Free Minds has evolved is that we teach liberty-minded filmmakers how to reach mainstream audiences, everything from scripting to distribution. And as Courtney mentioned, that's evolved into basically 3 different ways we do that. 1, seminars, those are big picture views of what's going on in the film and entertainment industry. And 2, workshops, which gives rapid fire feedback to liberty-minded filmmakers. And stay tuned for the virtual version of that in early December. And then the 3rd way that we fulfill our mission is through project-specific consulting services. And that can run the gamut from when we start at the very beginning of the project to at the end, dealing with publicity and distribution. And so with that, we will have a Q&A section towards the end, about 50 minutes or so into the event. And if you have questions, either for Shelby or Eli Steele, please send them directly to Courtney, and then she will, one of us will read them. And Courtney, can you give a rundown of the little buttons that people will find at the bottom?
Yes, as I am still getting to know Zoom myself, for those of you who aren't really familiar with it quite yet, if you drag your mouse over the screen where you see someone talking, you'll see down towards the bottom in the middle a little chat icon. The way that you would send me a message is you click on the chat icon, and then something to the right of your screen will open up, and it will ask you who you want to send it to. Everyone, participant, and just send it to me, and then I'll read it out loud just so it's not confusing, and we'll keep it efficient and keep it going that way.
Right on. So let's get to it. We're very honored to have, first of all, Shelby Steele with us. He's a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. In 2006, he received the Bradley Prize for his contributions to the study of race in America. In 2004, he was awarded the National Humanities Medal. In 1991, his work on the documentary 7 Days in Bensonhurst was recognized with an Emmy Award and 2 awards for television documentary writing, the Writers Guild Award, and the San Francisco Film Festival Award. I wonder if those guys would be awarding you today, given their narrow-mindedness. His documentary, Jefferson's Blood, for PBS's Frontline, was also critically acclaimed. Of course, he's written tons of important books, including White Guilt and The Content of Our Character, which received the National Book Critics Circle Award. I just recently watched your interview with John McWhorter and Glenn Lowry. And John McWhorter, as a lot of you will know, is a very eminent linguist from Columbia. And he says that he's read every single word that Shelby Steele has ever written. And he is a huge reason why he's in academia to begin with. So we're very honored to have Shelby Steele with us. And we're also honored to have Mr. Eli Steele with us. Courtney?
Yes, Eli. Eli's a good friend, but he's also an award-winning filmmaker. What killed Michael Brown marks his first professional collaboration with his father, Shelby. He's a graduate of Claremont McKenna College and Pepperdine University School of Public Policy. Eli's career highlights include How Jack Became Black, What's Bugging Seth, which was the winner of 10 film festivals, and Katrina, an MTV network pilot, which won him the Breakthrough Filmmakers Award. Steele has written for publications ranging from the LA Times to Commentary Magazine. So please welcome Eli.
Yeah, welcome, gentlemen. Well, let's first, just the easy question, maybe not so easy. How did you come to decide to make a film about this topic?
What's it, Eli?
Either one. And by the way, you're both listed as Eli. So it's the one in the suit coat that's Eli. Oh wait, you both have suit coats.
First, I probably should say that I am deaf, so I have a deaf accent. So it may take a while for you to understand me. The reason why we started the film was we wanted to work together, and we needed a topic that would, be in my father's arena, because if you know, it used to be, the start of the show, and so we talked about various racial issues in America, and no matter where we went, we kept coming back to Ferguson, and the reason why was because what happened there was, it's not the first time, but it was the first real time in America when 2 narratives came out of a shooting of a black boy by a white cop or a white person, and neither narrative was dying. The false narrative of hands up those shoes have been basically institutionalized. It was in colleges, in the government, everywhere. And the other narrative was sort of more, the narrative that was based on the evidence was more, it was just, I guess, Americans that refused to accept the other narrative. So it was a divide between the two. And that's what really attracted us, was that conflict. Why was she there? And was there something more deep or deep beyond this? And so it was something that gave us a lot of conflict, because in drama, in documentaries, you need conflict, you need drama, you need all of that. And we felt that the ingredients were here, and we should work with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And Shelby, one of the interesting, the film is very powerful. You guys did a great job, and deals with a very explosive topic with delicacy and a lot of nuance that you don't see too often these days. One of the parts that's especially interesting, Shelby, is is the discussion of your own political journey. Could you talk a little bit about that? How you believed as a younger man, and how you evolved over the years to what you believe today?
How much time do we have?
And do it
I'll give a quick synopsis. My parents met and married in the very early civil rights movement, the early 40s in Chicago. They were founding members of CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, which was the civil rights organization of the day. I was raised in that milieu, going to marches and demonstrations and fighting to integrate this church, to integrate the school system. And so race, civil rights, and so forth has just been there, is, I suppose, a part of my family legacy. And much of the writing that I've done has been one way or another related to that, the cultural events that surround it. We looked at the Michael Brown shooting, and there was, again, it was the series of shootings. It was Trayvon Martin before that, Freddie Gray, Eric Garner, the long list of incident where a Black teenager, usually a male, most always, was killed by a white cop, a white trigger finger. And in Chicago, the South Side, in the same year that Ferguson happened with Michael Brown, 3,000 Black boys were shot in 1 year. 700 were killed in 1 year. They got no attention. Michael Brown's death in Ferguson, Missouri, brought in the President of the United States, Barack Obama, who then brought in the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, who we follow in the film, coming into Ferguson along with people from around the world. It was only one boy was, and of course, obviously it was a tragedy. But we felt that the event of Michael Brown's shooting and all of the fallout that came from it represented a kind of symbiotic relationship between Black America and white America that made this event so explosive. And we wanted in this film to explore the reasons why. Where was the real tension at? Why was there so much tension? Why do people in Ferguson today still hold on to a vision of it that clearly was not true? We wanted to know what it meant for America in that sense.
And can you quickly summarize what happened that fateful day, just the facts of that specific day regarding the killing, versus, so what actually happened versus the popular perception of what happened that day?
Well, the popular perception is that that the cop virtually attacked Michael and shot him several times in the back as he was trying to run away. He finally turns around and holds his hands up and begs for mercy, and the cop then shoots him again and kills him. Problem with that, absolutely none of it's true. Michael Brown had just robbed the store, literally within an hour before the event occurred, stealing some cigarillos that he wanted to exchange for marijuana. He had a great deal of marijuana and other drugs in his system when this happened. He was walking down the middle of Canfield Drive, a street through the Black section of Ferguson, and Darren Wilson, the policeman, pulled over and asked him to walk on the sidewalk. From there was an altercation. Michael Brown slammed his fist into the side of the policeman's face as he sat in the car. Then they began to fight and wrestle over the gun. A shot went off. Michael turned and ran. He, maybe 20 yards or so down the street. Stopped, turned around. The policeman was begging him to come back, asking him to come back. Michael turns around and sort of girds himself, balls his fists up, and charges at Darren Wilson, the policeman. who is constantly backing up and asking him to stop, asking him to get down. He refuses all of those appeals, continues to rush. He gets within about 8 feet of the officer, who then fires, if I remember right, it's 6 or 7 shots and kills Michael Brown. And that's what happened. The story, of course, is that the policeman was a racist who, and in that sense, typical of the police force of that little city, Ferguson, and that he had an animus toward blacks, and that he took this as an opportunity, his encounter with Michael Brown as an opportunity to kill a black teenager. And that the murder was a racially motivated event, and so forth. And the policeman did, tragically, nobody can completely understand why, leave the body laying in the street, hot afternoon, August, 100 degrees, for 4.5 hours, during which time the whole community sort of begins to emerge, and the scene develops and develops. The story of this murder, a racially motivated murder, really grabs hold almost immediately, and people begin to see Michael as a victim of racism. And again, as evidence that systemic racism still prevails in America. And so police dogs are brought out, there's a confrontation, things get worse and worse and worse from there. Pretty soon people from all over the country are converging on Ferguson, and this goes on again for months. And within a year later, there are riots when it comes out that there was no basis to charge the policeman with any crime. Then of course riots start all over again. They burn the town pretty much down. The amount of damage is just amazing. People put out of business, and so forth. Ferguson has never really recovered from that, from all of that. Some good things have happened. There's a new boys club and so forth, but for the most part, the town, you can imagine what the property values would happen to the property values in a town internationally known as sort of capital of racism. So it is, and we got a chance to talk to a lot of the just regular people who live there, and the agony that they've been through, the price they paid and continue to pay, it's a remarkable story and a tragic story. And again, we wanted to understand what's really going on here, why this falsification of a tragedy in the name of why it's the intent on proving victimization, proving that Michael was a victim of racism. What's in it? Why is it happening in this way? In all these events, Trayvon Martin, Freddie, it's all the same, where there's this outcry that this is evidence, this tragedy is evidence that America, again, is still a racist country. Why do we need to make this point? What's really behind this? And that's where Eli and I sort of talked our way into the place where we couldn't turn back anymore. So we kept, kept going forward.
And there was some very interesting, smart filmmaking in terms of the way you two incorporated some sort of, I guess you would call it animation, and the audio of, I should say, the witness testimony dramatized by actors but then showing what happened that fateful day, as told by the witnesses themselves. So you get an aerial view of what's going on, where the officer was, where Michael Brown was. So it really helps, just from a comprehension standpoint, to see what's going on, where they were physically related to each other. And not only that, what the witnesses were, what their testimony was. And then you juxtapose that with YouTube clips and other clips of things that happened later on, where what happened that day kind of took on a whole different interpretation. Eli, can you first talk about the filmmaking challenges for that sequence, and how I think you guys did a great job with that. How did you come to decide on that approach for that sequence?
Yeah, the animation was done by DeVoe L, and it was a big collaboration between us two, because we wanted to figure out what was possible. And also, we didn't even know that, but we Googled how you do reenactment, how you do that. And there's apparently a whole field of study on it about the moral ethic of doing reenactment, because you don't want to do reenactment disturbs your ideology or whatever it is. You want to make sure you do it to reflect the truth. And so the way we decided was to not go as literal. Like we had ideas, maybe we show, maybe we animate body, maybe we would do all of that. Maybe we would do POV shots to show Michael Brown POV. But the reason that wait a minute, it's becoming too much about us. So let's just step back. Let's get people from St. Louis. We literally got people off the street, and gave them an Apple phone and had them read the testimony. Gave them $100, $200 to get the audio, because we wanted the authentic voice. And then we shook it. We just used a very simple animation. It was very simple, but when you put it all together, it really works in a way. And we wanted the burden to be on the Department of Justice report. We wanted to be able to say, all we did was dramatize what error holder Department of Justice found. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Then related to that, how did the one of the kind of signature pieces that came out of that episode was "Hands Up, Don't Shoot." For either of you or both of you, did that? Well, we know the answer. How did that idea come about? That's what happened. And Shelby, you mentioned earlier that it seems to have not happened. Can you? So how did we get from? First of all, clarify that. Did "Hands Up, Don't Shoot" happen? And if not, why did we think it did?
Why was that created? Created?
Why was that narrative created?
Yeah. If you rewatch the film, we do the our reenactment, and you watch it literally, like I guess like 1 minute later in the film, you see the iPhone footage. You can get it on YouTube, and you literally see them minute after the shooting. They have no evidence. They have no direct witnesses. You should hear the people talking. One person says he had his hands up, and then people should pick up on that. It's like the telephone game. If you watch the video, they should pick up on that, and it should go viral. It's human behavior. You want to be able to see understand the horror of what just happened. It's actually a very nice neighborhood. By the way, Canfield Green Department is not Section 8 housing. It's market rate housing. This Section 8 housing is next door. So Michael Brown was walking through this sort of, I would say, lower middle class neighborhood. Lower middle class neighborhoods to the Section 8 housing. There's only one way in and out. But the thing was that, you had there's a police officer fire bullets. Some of the bullets went into the house. Some of the bullets, ran around. It was not a pretty scene. So people have to make sense out of it. And so the hands up thing just became a rally cry. And then there's a guy named Shaheen, and he's sort of the local civil rights activist. If you watch our footage, he was the Shahid in literally almost every shot. He's behind Dorian Johnson, who's Michael Brown's best friend. I mean, not best friend, but the guy that was with him when he died. He's behind him. When Michael Brown's mother is all distraught, he's right next to her. When the German Shepherds are coming out, he's there. He was the mastermind. He was the guy that orchestrated the whole thing. He's the one that created that story, and he takes credit for it. It's, you know, because I mean, it's a very powerful story because when you go into St. Louis, even though you're St. Louis, you are in a southern town, and you've got this white police chief, this white mayor, this mostly black town, all the optics work. And so it gave power to the story. We did not put this in the documentary, but where Michael Brown, the part of Ferguson where Michael Brown was shot, it's almost like a little hangy piece of the town. Like imagine the block, and you have a little piece. It's a real little thing. Most people, a lot of people in Ferguson, they even know that that was part of Ferguson. So if Michael Brown had been shot literally 100 yards this way, it would have been the Jennies, which is like 99% black mayor, black government, everything. If he'd been shot the other way in Delwood,
Wow.
you have never heard of Michael Brown.
That's interesting.
Wow,
That's interesting.
that is interesting.
I didn't realize that. This is for both of you. Can you explain how the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd affected this project? I mean, the timing was pretty incredible for you guys. So talk a little bit about how that had, if it had an impact on your film.
Well, George Floyd happened. We were done shooting.
Or so you thought.
Or so you thought.
So we thought. And really ready to kind of, sort of taking a deep breath at that moment, and then boom. Here's this explosion out of nowhere. But again, the same sort of dynamic was in play. And here it was just awesomely graphic. A man burying his knee in the neck of another. I mean, it was a horrible. There was no, you couldn't look at that and say that, this was some sort of a just outrage. It looked as though it had the kind of intent of racial animus, that this was a white cop who didn't like this guy because he was black. Or the visual was just so overwhelming that if you argued maybe that's not true, then you would seem almost crazy. So it too, same thing, followed as Michael Brown. It just exploded. We still don't know all the facts in the case. Apparently the men actually knew each other, worked in the same bar or something as security officers. That there was a history. We don't know any of that yet. I presume when there's a trial, we will begin to know it. One of the things that struck us with Michael Brown, when again at the shooting itself, and people at that moment, so the story beginning to expand, where the people in the crowd say he had his hands up, and it's sort of, they become fiction writers at this point, and it's unfolding a kind of novel. Why? Where were they going? They were going, one of our main themes is that in America today, given our history, given what happened in the 60s and so forth, Black victimization, the victimization of Black people because of their race, if you can prove that, you have enormous power in American life. Just enormous power, because America is now redeeming itself from its history. And this looks like a backslide. And so if you can say, well, you victimized this young man, then this is why President Obama was interested. This is why Eric Holder flew into Ferguson. This is why people from so many people came in, that 9 out of 10 people who were arrested were from somewhere else. Were not from Ferguson itself. So the narrative was everything. This narrative of Black victimization, which underlies liberal power in the United States of America. And so it was a certainly not insignificant. It was a single event, but it was pregnant with all sorts of social political power. It's the kind of power that you see that Black Lives Matter formed out of Ferguson, expanded with the George Floyd situation, is now pressuring the American school system to follow a certain script with regard to, I mean, it is the amount of power in the death of this one boy is just utterly remarkable. And we wanted to show that to America.
One interesting thing when George Floyd happened, it was a shockwave, and we even through America. We lost people on the film. People said, okay, you know, too dangerous now. I mean, it's already dangerous enough doing Michael Brown. But now we had Arbery, and then we had George Floyd, and we had a couple others. And people just, the temperature got too hot. I mean, even should be honest, we thought maybe we don't have a film. Maybe George, I mean, what happened to George Floyd was so graphic. And, you know, but then we just said, look, let's just wait. Let's just see what happened. Because we've been through this before, you know, in America, where you have that explosion, and then we waited, and then eventually, unfortunately, the exploitation comes down, where people use this event. And so once that started happening, that bit our story, because remember, our story is not about these people, these victims. Our story is about America's response to this shooting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Independent filmmaking is hard enough, let alone during a pandemic, let alone in the aftermath of something like the George Floyd incident, when you're engaged with the subject material that you're engaged with. Eli, you mentioned that that the film project became too hot to handle for some people. I realize that there may not be certain things that you can say in a forum like this. Can you get into that a little bit more? What types of in terms of the types of repercussions you and your father had to face with regard to simply distributing the film and publicizing the film, doing all the other things that filmmakers do all the time?
Well, I don't think that my father and I are worried about basic repercussion. I mean, we've already stuck with them for the last 30 years, you know, right? Me, even like on a personal level, my father professionally. So when I signed up to do this film, it kind of comes with the territory, but somebody else, it may not. And, you know, I offer every single person, because I know that, you know, most of my crew has been with me for a long time. And so I said, look, I understand if you want to do the work, you know, not take a credit or something like that, be free. You notice that our credits are pretty short. It's like a minute long, literally. You know, I mean, I don't judge them, because, you know, they gotta work, they have family, and this is not the fight in life. You know, this is not the battle. But some of them, I like JM, he was a little, because he got a job and everything, but he stepped up. He said, I really believe in this film and I want to be part of it. So that's for you. I would probably say most of the crew was liberal in a way. And so they all stepped up and they all became part of this. I mean, it's a tough situation. It shouldn't be that way in America. We should be able to, you know, make a film, and people should have the maturity to not want to fire or act or ostracize people from pointing out something. If you know, there's been about 3 documentaries done on Ferguson, all of them supported the hands that don't shoot. We take a different route. Those filmmakers will never be punished, even though they're telling something that has been proven wrong by the United States government. during our, in our culture, because of Father's Day, fishing station, that's where the power is. Telling that narrative, that's where the power is. So if you go our way, you're gonna get canceled by Amazon. You're gonna have people coming after you. But having gone through that, I would say that 90% of the feedback has been very positive. And part of the reason why the people want to attack us, well, I mean, what ground are you doing it from? You're doing it from a very partisan, a very ideological ground. You're not doing it from the truth.
Right.
I'd add to that. I think that's one of the things that's appeal to us about the film, and I think it's appealing generally about the film is people want to really know the truth. People know that they're not getting it. That plays into our hands. We'll give you a straight shot. We'll take that risk for you. As filmmakers, we will be the ones that put ourselves in jeopardy to show you what we are convinced as best we can, what is true and what is not. So it gives our film, I believe, a certain charisma that it would not otherwise have.
Definitely, absolutely. Let's talk about what happened when you released your film. The target date for release was, I believe, October 16th. And your intention was to have it available on Amazon. Can you tell us what happened to that plan?
Yeah, we finished the film literally like September 25th or so, and we began the upload process on the 26th, I believe. And I'm not remembering all the days, but literally like 2 days later, we were put into content review. And so I thought that might be
By Amazon.
Yeah, by Amazon, yes. And so I thought the content review was for a technical reason. And there's three things in there. There's the video file, there's the audio file. I'm just four things. Well, the video, the film itself, and then you have the caption, and then you have the artwork. I spent a lot of time researching all the specs. This is my first time uploading. And the reason why you want to upload your stuff, if you upload your stuff as a filmmaker, you get, the full share of the revenue to come back. If you have somebody else do the upload for you, you should wind up giving them 25%. And why do that? I mean, it's a simple process. So that's why I did it myself. And so you were putting into content review, and we just sat there for about 10 days. I've seen other people do a similar process, and they were up, the whole film was up within 2 or 4 days. We just kept going on, and then Jason Riley came out with a piece these days. It looks like the film may be canceled by Amazon, and this was like October 14th. Then that night, so Jason posted his piece, I think like 5 o'clock that evening, and then by like 7:30, which is a real time, like why you sending emails that was 7:30 via corporation, but we get canceled. And it wasn't, now you should think about it, different emails that they could have sent. They could have sent an email that for technical reason, you need a 50 part of your film, or you need this something. But the letter that we got was so absolute in its rejection. It was basically like, get the hell out of here. We don't want to see you anymore. It's just that your film cannot be resubmitted and you cannot appeal. And that's a pretty harsh letter to send out. It's almost like you send it out, and I don't know why you would send that out. And therefore, criteria would be put into content review. And that was like abuse the public domain, extreme violence or theft or something like that, which our film obviously had none of that. So there's too many coincidences. Oh, and then Amazon later claimed that they sent an email by mistake. Okay, well, all the possible emails that you send that one. And then you put our film in content review. There's like 2 or 3 more coincidences. Now, a story can survive one. But when you start adding it up, the only thing to explain all of the action is human action. There's somebody behind it. that's the only thing that he explained how all of these things just happen. And of course, the corporation is never going to admit to political and or racial discrimination. So, but we have a title, What Killed Michael Brown? Or and you're doing it in a time when Amazon is giving money to Black Lives Matter, when they are literally revamping the whole slate to amplify. That was the campaign, was to amplify Black voices. Well, clearly ours, they want to amplify that. So in a way, it's a little scary because people would say, "Oh, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? What Amazon did? You get over it." And I'm like, "Well, you obviously are not a filmmaker. You know that it takes a minimum. I mean, this documentary was done incredibly fast. We literally finished like in 2 years and 1 month after we started. So that's extremely fast." And we put all that work and all that effort. Why would anybody do that if there's a chance that they might be canceled? So that's why what happened in Amazon is very significant for artistry. Who would they take a chance and create something like this? Everybody who did play safe, made the politically correct stuff. Nobody did take a chance. So that's why it's a huge question of whether Amazon is a platform or a publisher.
Shelby, would you like to add anything regarding the Amazon controversy?
Well, it's just an example of how deeply this point of view has infused now even corporate America. It's what they call now the cancellation culture. And it's, what can you say? It is to live, I'm born and raised in the greatest democracy in the history of the world. And to see people see this kind of thing where you simply don't agree with something and so you cancel it. It's something new in American life. I grew up in the civil rights movement. I know what it's like to be for movements to confront the mainstream and conventional life and so forth. But I've never seen anything quite like where you just simply cancel something, dismiss it. You don't engage it as though you are somehow represent a moral point of view so wonderful, so sound that it's beneath you, an indignity to actually deal with something you disagree with. That's a terrible place to be. I think that's going to become a bigger and bigger issue in the very near future. America's going to have to deal with that. We were lucky. The Wall Street Journal, I write for them often. They wrote a couple of Jason Riley's column. Then there was an editorial. Amazon canceled Shelby Steele. So that goes out across that's what got us, when I wrote my thank you note to them, I thanked them and I said it was a David and Goliath story, but you made it, thank you very much, you made it a Goliath story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have to send Jeff Bezos a bottle of wine or something.
Right. But if the Wall Street Journal had not picked it up, then no one would have seen that film. Or very few.
That's amazing. How has the talk? Can you either one of you discuss the publicity side of things? Are people? Are you getting a lot of publicity? Are people saying it's too hot to handle? Is the Amazon controversy helping you? What's it like publicizing this film?
A lot of it's been good. We've made a lot of inroads. I would probably say the biggest mistake if you made the film was the PR people that we went with. They just didn't get the film. Even one of them didn't never even watch the film until like 2 weeks in. We didn't know that. And so it's very, very important And, I think part of it was the music started. The music literally has been going nonstop. So that was the biggest mistake that we made, and we'll never do that again. But it tells you how important it is to have people who have, they don't have to necessarily be of the same political, aspirations you, but they need to be like-minded. They need to know what you do. They need to know what you're trying to do and support you in that. And so the interesting thing was that we got a lot of, because of the Amazon thing, just a lot of it's luck. But we also put ourselves in that position. I mean, we made the movie, we did what we did. Another thing I want to say one day though is, I cannot tell you how many people try to get us to change the title of the movie. A lot of the distributors that we talked to before we released the movie hated the title. They wanted this title gone. And it was to our advantage that it shows you how much you have to believe in what you're doing. Because, these people are the gateway. Distributors come in, they hold a lot of power and they want to make you change the title. But the title makes the whole movie. Without the title, you don't have a movie. I mean, you really don't. And so I'm just kind of saying that all of these variables put us in that position to get a lot of PR. And what we're doing though is we have to be very deliberate. We have to know our audience, because I give them more on the conservative side. We should get those people, but the reason why we made this movie was to show it to a black teenager. Hey, this is the world that you come from. This is the history that you come from. And a lot of black people don't know the history. And so that's a response to be getting from them. I did not know. So that's where we've been targeted at. And we have a whole campaign coming up where we're going to have Zoom calls with leaders of the Black community. And so we should talk to them directly and have them see the film directly. And that's a way to get even more PR. Anyway.
Yeah. Wow. And we'll be moving to the Q&A section pretty soon. So I see some of you have already been sending questions in. Please send in questions if you have them for Shelby and Eli, and we will get to them in just a little while. Eli, you mentioned the role of gatekeepers, and it seems if you look at a Reed Hastings or Amazon, Sundance, for instance, a lot of these gatekeepers are white themselves, and you can very easily get the impression that Black people are a monolith. But when you read the opinion polls, you see great political diversity within the Black community. I just read a New York Times poll about what percentage of Black people think support defunding the police, and I'd love to walk up to 10 people on the Upper West Side and ask them what they think versus what these respondents said. And overwhelmingly, Black people do not support defunding the police. Why do you think that there is so much, on the one hand, interest in promoting diversity, but then that interest seems to come to a halt when it's viewpoint diversity or political diversity?
I'll take that. One of the things that we are most up against is white guilt. These gatekeepers who they are, as whites, are under threat constantly of being called racist. And without really often acknowledging it to themselves, that's their bottom line. They're not going to do anything that is controversial, puts them in a position where they might be called racist. So it means that people like Eli and I, who are interested simply, we're not interested in protecting them from judgment. We're not going to buffer them against white guilt. They have to, in themselves, find the courage to make a decision based on the art form and whether the movie is good or is not good. But they often let that voice, that collective white guilt, that anxiety, that nervousness, that they're going to get in trouble and they're going to pay a heavy price. And so they end up blocking us from communicating with a broad audience, with black. You know, they're worried about how blacks are going to take it. Well, you know, Black America is a very, very diverse community of people with all sorts of points of view, and they're all and open-minded, and they're not going to take things offensively. They're going to listen to them or argue with them or not. When I go to black churches, and so it's fun because white guilt's not in the room. We can talk. We can say what we really think and feel, and without making them nervous. It's just part of our dynamic today in American life that we live with. Comes to us through our history.
That's very well said, and that's a fascinating point to bring out the fact that white guilt is really a burden for Black people more so than others might even realize. So that's fascinating.
We have to calculate everything through their anxiety, as in addition to our own.
Of course. Yeah, I love that what you just said. It was great to go to a Black church because there was no white guilt in the room. You could just relax, not have to feel the tension of that. That totally makes sense. Before we open this up to everyone participating, please send me your questions. I know they're coming in, which is great. Eli and Shelby, what advice would you give to filmmakers who are also tackling controversial topics as you guys have?
Know your subject really well, and also know the culture. Like, you know, I literally have, you know, one finger on the subject material, but then read the papers. I'm looking at what the culture is doing, because because we're just trying to make a controversial point. You want to make them in a way that you get the least flack from, and you also want to make them in a way that is palatable to people. Because, you know, people are going to come out with all these prejudgment. So you want to, yeah. And the other thing I would say is trust your gut. If you have a gut feeling about what you're doing, I film by gut feeling literally the whole time. And that's what drove my father crazy, because he wanted to know where we're going. And I was like, I know where we're going. So get over there and do that.
Trust me.
You really have to have a gut feeling. You have to have something that's deep down that you know what you want. You may not know why, but you should know you need it. If you don't have that, you're not going to make a good movie. Because you have to believe in what you're doing.
Well said.
Absolutely.
Well
I learned to trust his gut, by the way. We had our little excitements, but I learned to trust his gut. I'm not a filmmaker, he is, and he's thought about these things and grappled with them. Good gut instincts.
nice.
That's great.
Yeah, we're getting more questions, and Courtney, it occurred to me that some of the people logged on after you gave the
the little tutorial.
Yeah, so why don't you just briefly go over that?
Yeah.
And then we'll get to the questions that have already been submitted.
Yeah, we'll open this up to you guys. Yeah, I mentioned this early on. For those of you who are not terribly Zoom savvy yet, to send me personally a question that you would like me to ask Eli and Shelby, drag your mouse over the screen where you see Ted and me right now, and down towards the bottom in the middle, you'll see a little chat icon. Click on that. Over to the right of your screen, you will see the chat open, and then under 2, click it and just choose me, Courtney. So we've got some questions that have already come in.
Well, yeah, let's do this one first.
You want to do this one first? Okay.
Well, Leo asks, how can people view the film now?
Oh, the best way to go is you go to whatkilledmichaelbrown.com. And they're always adding new options to view the film. So the best things, you go there, and right up on the homepage, you see the option.
Great.
And then I noticed going on the Amazon side, you've got a tremendous amount of, I think you've got 5 stars all across, and lots of reviews. It seemed from the outside, it seems like Amazon is working very well for you now. Is that fair to say?
Yes. I mean, it's a huge platform. I mean, it's huge. I mean, we were on Vimeo for about 5 or 7 days before Amazon, and Vimeo was great, but you actually people should learn a new platform. And most people are not familiar with Vimeo because we're talking to the whole world, and a lot of people know how to work Amazon. So that's
Yeah.
that's what Amazon gives you. It gives you that ease. Plus, we were on the bestseller list. So if you want to go look on the bestsellers, we're gonna be up in the top 10.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You can't beat that.
And a lot of filmmakers are kind of sometimes overwhelmed by the different, you can put your film on so many different platforms. Were there any surprises that you came across? Like, were some platforms better or worse than you thought going in?
Well, the platforms are only as good as you are.
Mhm.
It's just a platform. If I take my movie and put it in the park, well, I can put it in the park, I can get a projector, but I still gotta go get all the people who come to see it and fill that park up. It's the same idea with the platform. So the platform, you can get on iTunes and get, yes, I'm stuck. No, you're not. You're on the bottom. But what's interesting though is in my talks with the middleman, Amazon for right now is the only platform that a filmmaker can upload to directly, which is great. I mean, I love that. But they claim the largest revenue share is 50-50, a 50-50 split. iTunes, you have to go through the aggregator. And the aggregator, because iTunes doesn't want to deal with what happened with Amazon, they don't want to deal with that, so they should put it through a middleman. Whatever deal you make with the aggregator, make sure that you pay the full fee and get the 100% of the revenue coming towards you. Why give them 25% just to put your film up? So make sure. But what the aggregators have told me is that you don't need a lot of views to get up on top. If you put your film up on iTunes and you get 1,000 people to buy it the first night, your pop up, you'll be on the top. So it's not a lot. You don't need a lot, but you have to do all that marketing. You have to find those 1,000 people. You have to get people excited about it to get the film up. I mean, you get the film, it should at least should be the cream that rises to the top.
Mhm. Great.
Yeah, good to
That's
know.
the Susan question.
So we'll start taking questions from our attendees. This is from Susan. Did you talk to any film distributors before or during the making of the film? If yes, what was their response?
We did. We talked to, I'm not gonna name names, but we just talked to a couple of people. I would say one thing, they believe in the film as much as we did. They didn't know, I mean, a lot of people don't understand. I mean, we're making a movie about race. But that's like the #1 taboo thing in America, and a lot of people just don't know what to do with it. That's why they asked you to change the title. And so we should say, you know what? We should be going on our own. We should put it on Amazon, and we should see the baby fly. And if we had done that, we would never had the issue with Amazon to get all that free publicity. And so if we taken the state route and just gave it to a distributor, ironically, we would not make much money that way.
Mhm.
And you have more cushion to kitchen, though. I mean, that's why the Amazon thing is so powerful, because if you're a publisher, you actually have more freedom as a filmmaker. You really do. And Amazon got 50% of everything that we made. So they got pretty, well, I know they're huge, but they got a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Here's a question from Sam. Why do they think this documentary has been more difficult to get visibility than the movie on Bensonhurst?
Well, the movie on Bensonhurst was 30 years ago. And it was done for Frontline. I used to work for, I did a couple for Frontline, Bensonhurst, and another one on Jefferson's Blood. And so you just automatically have that huge, in those days, that huge market, and they had pretty much had a corner on it. And so on a given, if I remember, it was Friday nights, 9 o'clock or something in most markets. That was it. And so and I'm not with them anymore. They're still around. They still make documentaries. Our culture is, let me just say politely, is more divided than it was beginning to be divided back then. But it's much, much more. The division is much sharper. And so I would not be able to make a documentary for Frontline at this point.
Wow.
Interesting.
One thing though, it is interesting is that the budget for Painted Hearse in 1990 was over $1 million.
Oh, wow.
And the budget for this film was
Probably
low.
about 2 million, right? Wow.
That's a big one for God.
Well, they didn't have Eli back then, so
Yeah.
make up for it. Here's another one. What's next for the film in terms of your plans for how to screen it to other audiences? So I guess another way, what do you guys have in the works for? I know Eli, we've talked offline about reaching out to Black churches, perhaps. What else do you guys have in mind for the future of the film?
That's really the main focus. It really is to get it into that part of the culture. And present it, whether they agree with it or disagree with it, but that's really our #1 goal. Because the Black community tend to be the trendsetter for America. So we use the Black community do something a lot of people tend to follow. And the reason why a lot of white liberals have so much power is because the Black kind of follow them. Maybe the Black race is just stop and say, hey, let's look at this. You guys are irrelevant. This is why Malcolm X, I mean, this is nothing new. This is back in the 1960s. If you go read his quotes, he was the worst enemy of a Black person is a white liberal. Because they just take away your power, they take away everything, they control you. And so that's sort of the reason why we really want to counter that, because what we're doing here is nothing really controversial. We're just saying this is what happened to us. And we have to acknowledge that and move on. We don't deny the left point of view about segregation, redlining, or blockbusting, but liberalism is a much more dangerous force because it takes over your mind. It makes you think a certain way. When we're talking about all the cancer, all of this is not coming from the right. This is not coming from the middle. This is coming from the left. The reason my colleagues, my crew members could not put the film up I put the name on my film is because of the left. And that's something that we need to break free from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've become, I'm a fan. There's this study out called Hidden Tribes. It's gotten a decent amount of publicity, and it breaks up America, not by left and right, but into 8 distinct tribes. And what they found is that there is quite a bit of difference between the tribe described as progressive activists and the rest of the country. So the progressive activists comprise about 8% of the population. And then all the other tribes are kind of the different flavors you would imagine, like very conservative to very liberal. But and then most Black people are in all those other groups. There are actually more Black people in the very conservative group than in the progressive activists. But you would never realize that just by, going to a Sundance panel or reading the New York Times.
Look at the whole defund the police document. Even Al Sharpton had to come out and say that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But to this day, some of my friends still preach that. I mean, in LA, our homicides are up, everything up, and we're cutting the police budget. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to wrap up. We could go on for hours talking with you two. I just want to, Shelby, what is your take on, do you think in 10 or 20 years, things will be better in this regard in terms of a culture of free speech where we're we're not just assuming that because your skin color is dark, you must believe X, Y, and Z. How do you see things in 10 or 20 years?
I think things are, I'm an optimist. And I think things will, the quality that's most important, I think, is courage. And America, you know, we prize that in our broader culture. And that's going to make a difference. People are not going to be that, are going to reject intimidation. That's what Eli and I did here, and I'm proud of that. We said we won't be. We want to make this film. We're not going to be into, everybody would tell us not to do it. Everybody would say, don't wade in those waters. Make a film about something else, something banal. Well, we just weren't interested in that. We made a film about what we were interested in, and America, through some resistance, stood up to it. They liked this film. People who have seen this film compliment it and talk about how they saw things in a different way and opened their eyes to this, that, and the other, and that it was a great experience. I'm proud of that. You know, I don't know what we'll do in the future, but it gives me hope. I believe that good work overwhelms everything else, everything that tries to resist it. I'm in the world of writing. Same thing. If you write something that's really good, it may go through, and the day you let it go, it's going to have its own life, and it's going to look like it's beat up one day, but the next day it's going to prevail. People are reading a book of mine called White Guilt. I wrote that book 16, 17 years ago. Did okay, but it's got a new life. People are ready for it, are interested in it now in ways they weren't back then. That's the way it worked. That's the way it should be. And bit by bit, we make progress and move ahead.
Excellent. That's a great way to end.
I hope you're
On an optimistic note. Shelby Steele, thank you so much for your time. Eli Steele, thank you so much for your time. Please check out their, if people want to support the film, what's the best thing for them to do?
Buy the film.
Ask a stupid question, right?
And I just want to make sure everyone saw that Sam sent everybody a link to their website that Eli mentioned where you can access the film. It should be in your chat box. So take a look at that.
So thank you to Sam and all of our other partners and friends over at Florida State's DeVoe Moore Center, and for everybody else in Free Minds Film. Stay tuned for more offerings coming your way soon. Look for your emails from either myself or Sam, most likely. We will be having a virtual version of our very popular workshop where you will have one-on-one interaction with industry experts for any film or TV project you might have in the works, regardless of what stage of development it's in. So thank you, Nicholas Gilbert. All right, yeah, people are sending thanks.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we went a little bit over, but I think it was well worth it. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.